everybody. I hope everybody can hear me. But God bless everybody. Welcome to the Crazy Within broadcast. We are coming here live. And I am so excited to have the two women of God, and I have a surprise for you. Oop, I said it before I was supposed before I announced it, but I do have two women of God, not just one, but two. I get excited. Y'all know I get excited. I have two women of God who are going to come and talk about wealth, and we're going to come talking about wealth in a different way. I know most people think about wealth and they think of me being rich and being able to go to different places, exotic lands, and just lounge on the beach with my margarita and have a good time with my family and friends. And I don't have to worry about anything. Everything's going great. But I want you to think about wealth just a little bit differently today. Because wealth is not just about you being able to have the nicest car, the nicest house, having to be able to travel whenever you get ready, going on that cruise or whatever. But wealth is about sustaining your life for your whole life. That's real wealth. And for a lot of us, we know nothing about that. We're just watching the people on TV that are rich and are wealthy, and we're thinking, oh, we're just dreaming that we want to do that. If I just won the Mega Millions, if I just win the Powerball, and we're thinking in that aspect, and we're not thinking about the fact that every day that you go to work, you have the opportunity to acquire wealth. You have the opportunity to make it so that your family is not struggling. And I want to talk about that because a lot of us don't put that into consideration when we're talking about wealth. So the first person I'm going to bring on is Dr. Reverend Nicole B. Simpson. And she is a CFP, and she will explain what that is. But I'm excited to have her because I've known this woman. Now, y'all all know I relocated to Florida, but I knew her back in the day when I was living in New Jersey, and I know this woman for so long, and she is a wonderful woman of God. And y'all know I don't bring nobody on my show that I don't vet. I vet everybody. Very few people come on my show when I just met you. Very few. Most people I've known for a moment, I see your work, and I see that your work will be a blessing to you guys, because you guys mean the world to me. I want to give y'all the best knowledge, the wealth of knowledge that I can bring to you through the people that I know that can bring it to you the best. So tonight I'm going to bring on this wonderful woman of God. But before I do that, before I do that, I want to read you a little bit of her bio. And for you guys who don't know, y'all better go out here and get this book. This book, I'm gonna talk about it in a minute because I'm jumping ahead of myself. I'm gonna read her bio. Give me 1 minute. I'm gonna read her bio. Reverend Dr. Nicole B. Simpson, CFP, is a practitioner with over 30 years of experience in the security industry, which she entered in 1991 and holds Series 763 and 65 security licenses. And we'll talk about that, and we'll talk about what that means and why that is so important. On September the 11th in 2001, her life was drastically altered as a financial planner working at 2 World Trade Center on the 73rd floor. Simpson was still in the building on the 44th floor when Tower 2 was hit during the World Trade Center attack. Today, Simpson compassionately assists families on how to begin to walk along the road to recovery when faced with a catastrophic, unexpected disaster. She is actively involved in spiritual, emotional, and economic empowerment. A compelling empowerment speaker, yes, she is, television and radio personality and author, Ms. Simpson travels throughout the United States teaching in a practical and easy to understand manner. Her simple approach motivates everyone who hears her message to take action to change their future. Her commitment is to gauge people with the thought, if money was not an issue, what would be your life's purpose? And without further ado, I would like to bring on the wonderful, accomplished, respectful, and honorable my sister, Reverend Dr. Nicole B. Simpson. Please join me. Please join me.
Coach Cynthia, I'm sitting there like, who is that woman that she's talking about? And how can I go get the martini on the beach? Where you at? Because I like that level of wealth. Thank you for having me so much. It is my honor and privilege to be here with Crazy Coach Cynthia and talking about what I think is a very necessary conversation so we can help our people.
Amen. And it is, I want to say to everybody, I started this journey of with February being finance month, because I think that for a lot of us, we think that if we're getting by, we're doing good. And I think in our society, especially now, we have the very extreme wealthy and we have the very extreme poor, and the gap is getting wider and wider with the very extreme wealthy and the very extreme poor. And I think people have a misnomer for me about what it means to be wealthy and rich, or rich, because some people equate rich and wealthy as the same, so I'll
Right,
give that today. But and what it means to be poor. And
right,
I want to say that a lot of the people that people assume are poor are actually middle class. They just don't know how to work their finances. And then you have those that people consider wealthy and rich. A lot of them are actually, whether you know it or not, they're poor.
right.
They're just working their wealth a little better than you think. Because everybody that has money does not necessarily are not financially sound. They have money because you got to think about all the people. A lot of people are made millionaires this day and age through three different entities. Either one, they win a lottery, and a lot of times they wind up blowing that money because they don't get anyone to help them financially strategize their money. So a lot of them wind up blowing through the money. Then you have people who become quick rich, as I call them. Those are those people who, internet influencers, people who may have sold a book, that they become financially wealthy all of a sudden, and they came from a poor existence, and now they have all this money. They don't know what to do with it, so they begin to spend money erratically, going out on that beach and having those, pina coladas and stuff, and forget about the fact that they have a life to live when they come back.
Right.
And then there are the other ones who become wealthy because mommy and daddy left them money in a trust fund, or because mommy and daddy passed away and mommy and daddy left them some money. And I have seen people who have got left millions of dollars and lose it the same year
So I
because
think one of the things,
they miss spend the money. They just, oh, I'm gonna go out and we're gonna be popping bottles all night, and they bought that Lamborghini, or they bought that. My favorite car is a Rolls Royce, but I tell my husband all the time, the only way I would buy a Rolls Royce is if I got the house already, I'm financially set already, because a Rolls Royce is the price of a house. So some people just see it and they go, oh, that's what I want, and they think they got the money for it, and they actually may have the money. The problem is that they're not financially sound to take care of the money. So
well,
to
let's uncover all of what it
go
is
ahead.
that you said in terms of what you see and what your observations are. And I want to say that they are keen observations. So let's identify wealth first and foremost. It is an abundance of valuable possessions or money that someone may have. And so there is a difference between being comfortable, rich, and wealthy, right? And so when we think about wealth from our lens, and that's oftentimes the marginalized in our oppressed culture and or community, most people think, well, I can only acquire wealth through that get rich quick scheme or mechanism to which you identify lottery or something of that nature, or a windfall because you may have, poor black man from the projects makes it in basketball or football and they get this huge contract and now they're wealthy, but they don't have the great financial stewardship in order to maintain or preserve wealth. The truth is that most individuals can become financially stable enough that wealth be their portion through financial prudence and good stewardship. And so we want to make sure that we are defining what does wealth mean to someone. Because if someone has earned, 35 to 40,000, which is poverty equivalent, but they've been steadfast in their savings. They can find that when they ultimately retire, they have millions of dollars. For them, that's a level of wealth, and it changes the dynamic of their family, period. As long as they continue to be good stewards and teach, their family now can change the trajectory or the course of their entire lineage. And so that may be one way that one acquires it. Another way that someone can acquire some level of wealth or financial stability is by the methodology in which you're talking about. But I want to broaden it. Not someone that make become a best-selling author, go buy my book. Not one of those individuals. But if you find yourself in a place through entrepreneurship, if someone wants to really acquire wealth in America, the best conduit to do it is to bank on yourself. And when we make the investment into ourselves, utilizing our gifts, our talent, and monetizing that, then we have the ability to, really see wealth as our portion or possibility for us ourselves. Most people are not even looking for the ridiculous level of wealth that you may see on television or anything of that nature. Most people want to know that I want to be able to do what I want to do, get what I want to get, enjoy the life I want to enjoy, and then when it's all said and done and I'm gone, I want to leave a legacy to my loved ones. That's what most people are striving for, because they understand I want the comfortable life while I'm here, work hard, play hard, enjoy life, and when it's all said and done, I don't want my kids to have to experience what it is that I experienced. And I surely, because parents turn into different people when we have grandchildren. Surely I don't want my grandchildren to live the way that I had to raise my kids. And so
Right.
when we begin to think about it from that lens, then our methodology of approaching money changes. And if that is the conversation that we can have, then wealth is more accessible to more individuals that look like you or me. Having been in the industry for 32 years and counting, so long, I've seen so much in that regard. And so it is possible, but education is critical for our culture and our community in order for us to advance. And I want to say one last thing, Cynthia, in the fact that we are doing much better. And I want to commend us as a community, as a set body of believers, so that we can continue to build upon what we've already started. The Generation X community will be the first community that in mass have the ability to
Yes.
acquire $1 million at minimum in their lifetime.
Yes.
And so, not based off of what mommy and daddy may have left us, but based off of earnings itself, based off of the fact that we've gotten a level of education and we've gotten and acquired some level of success in our in our career, in our vocation. And so, not everyone is living below poverty means. We do have access and opportunity. And with those two things, if I add education into the mix, then acquiring even at minimum $1 million is not a hard task.
I agree with you 100%, because I think that when we look at where we are, if I break up the two communities, if I break up the community of Christians, there are a lot of Christians who are wealthier than the Christians that came before them. When I think about how, when I grew up, my mega church back in the day, Greater Abyssinia Baptist Church in Newark, New Jersey, back in the day would have been considered a mega church. We had a huge choir. I mean, two services, three services. It was nothing for us. They were pulling in that type of money. Now, would it be a mega church now? Absolutely not. Now you got mega churches that are now doing campuses, and they having 10,000, sometimes even 20,000 people showing up for service on a Sunday. But we have moved forward. When I think about the Black community and how far we have come from where my mother and them worked, when my mother worked for Prudential and was a clerk at Prudential in Newark, New Jersey, and my father worked for Food Town and ShopRite as a receiving clerk, and now to have their daughter be a general manager at a hotel, to have my daughter and her husband now being entrepreneurs who are being successful in their various businesses. I see the change in our generation, and I can see it in my own generation. I don't even have to go, or my children have to go, or my grandchildren have to go, well, my mommy and daddy. No, you can go back further than that. And so there is that generational change where the wealth is plentiful for all of us.
Right.
But at the same time, without that education,
Yeah.
we lack how to not only just acquire the wealth, but keep the wealth, how to use it so that it is not just for when I'm healthy, which is where I want to go, to when I'm not healthy, when I'm not strong enough, when my mind is no longer with me. That wealth is still there. And what I consider wealth is being financially sound, where that wealth is still there, that I don't have to worry, or my children have to worry, what are we going to do with mom? What are we going to do with dad? Are they going to be able to stay at our house? And we're going to get into that, because that is a part of this. I'm gonna tell you guys, I stepped on it, but I'm gonna go right into it. Right. You guys have got to get this book. I read this book. This book is fabulous. Okay, fabulous. I'm not talking. Y'all know I don't do this. This book is fabulous. I'm talking about from an author's point of view. I'm talking about from a sister's point of view. I'm talking about somebody who's trying to acquire her own wealth point of view. This book gave me so much knowledge that I myself now am going, you too late. You know, I'm a decade or too late. I know I'm not too late, but I'm late in learning about this. This is something I should have learned in high school. This is something.
Let me backtrack for
go ahead.
So that we can inspire and encourage others to say today is a great day to begin shifting my mindset about resources. So if I go back to the lowest common denominator, and the fact that you gave your family biography, I'm just going to utilize them in this narrative, because I think it will be helpful when you can look at where it is that your parents came from. When they began to save incrementally, right? They may not have been the ones that bought huge insurance policies, but maybe they saved incrementally, and they were the first homeowners in your family dynamics. They're the first ones to go out and buy a home. And, so now they have a home. They might have had minimum insurance, and they have some level of savings, so that Cynthia and any siblings that you might have had, had a more fruitful upbringing, that you didn't get raised in the projects because your parents worked full time, and then you and your spouse found yourselves 2 full times at a greater level, where they may have started off at clerks, but now you're managers, so you're making a little bit more. And what did you learn from mommy and daddy? You learned, well, get a home. That makes economic sense. You might have learned, well, they saved for retirement because when they got older, even if they didn't have enough, they had something initially. So we were able to see wealth in action in their lives based off of their lifestyles that they may have had. And so maybe we can pattern ourselves accordingly. But then you did what? Tell your kids, listen, I need you to go further than I've gone. I need you to do more than what I did. Your father and I showed you how to get here. I need you to go to the next level. Why am I saying this? That's what made me really focus on what you're calling the quiet shift. That's the name of the book. What I was able to see, even when I was young in the industry, and the background is important. I identified being in this for 30 years, but I saw this 10 years into my vocation. And so what I saw was, particularly, although it has evolved for me after 30 years, I used to see Black men and women that I would look up to as a young girl, a young woman in the mid-20s, working on Wall Street, loving what it is that I did. And they would have a house, and they would look real nice, and they would drive these amazing cars, and they would find themselves on vacation. And so we, younger than them, we lived vicariously through them. I mean, she had on a mink coat, a fur coat, a fox. He wore the top hat. Everything was lovely. They changed their cars like every 3.5 years or 3 to 5 years. And we thought that that was success. They had this home. Then they would get older. Their health would deteriorate. And then they would pass away. And then what they did was they left their house, which was their primary asset that they had paid off their mortgage for. They left it to their children. And then after a while, you would see the house go up for foreclosure. And here's wealth leaving our community. And that was devastating for me 10 years into the industry, seeing that this family built and acquired something, because in an average, I won't say in an average house, but in a house that somebody's had for an extended period of time, it could be at minimum $250,000 in that house. And so if your parents paid off their mortgage and you live in any any community and it's paid off, the money is yours. So you find that the children, if it's four, five, or six of them, they couldn't pay the taxes, they couldn't pay, the insurance on it. And then after a while, they were in disagreement about what to do, how to manage all of the expenses associated with a house. And so they lose the entire asset. And so you saw this time and time and time again. So for the quiet shift, I actually tried to write this 20 years ago, but then 9/11 happened. And so, for those that don't know, and I know you stated it in my biography. I was on the 44th floor of Two World Trade Center when it was actually hit, and so my life was forever altered because I had gone through trauma where I was making six figures at the tender age of 30, and it went down to $18,000. And I had the house, I had the two children, I had the significant other, the white picket fence. But what happens when your earnings is depleted or it's no longer there? And so that recovery to which our culture and community, we experience that all the time. Many of us have had stop and start in this quest for financial freedom. And so just trying to pick up the pieces with my health being challenged at the time, it was a long road toward recovery. So you saw my body of work up until, a few years ago, my body of work has been, how do I recover financially? How do I recover emotionally? How do I recover spiritually? And so I have been focusing on dealing with families in all three areas. And scripture supports that. I wish above all things that you would prosper and be in good health, even as your soul prospers. And so it's a mantra that I live by. So prosperity means financial integrity, dealing with your money, managing your money most appropriately, but that being good health, taking care of your temple, making sure, just like you alluded to, I don't want my kids to take care of me. I want to make sure that I'm not a burden or a hindrance on them. Be in good health. Not only that, but mentally, just culturally growing up, being a black in America, there's some cultural issues that make us mentally crazy sometimes, even as our soul prospers. And we all know that just being of the faith is something that we all value, and we lean heavily on the faith narrative, not so much on the prosperity and being good health narrative. So I spent the last 20 years kind of identifying this is where we need to go. So I say all of that to say what you uncovered in the book is where I stand 30 years in the industry, 20 years after I initially thought about it, a lot more experienced in it to be able to help families say, hey, wait a minute. You got to think about legacy. You have to think about your loved ones. You have to think about the next generation. You have to have uncomfortable conversations if you don't want your children to lose out on what it is that you would provide for them if you were well able bodied. And that's hard for us because we don't tell our kids nothing. We don't tell them how much money we got in the bank. We don't tell our children how we're feeling until it's too late. And we owe it to them to have that conversation.
That is so true. And the last part is so true. We tend not to tell our children the truth. We will, children will call and ask, how you feeling, and we'll be like, oh, I'm fine, and we know that we're not. And as somebody who's going through that with my own mother, my mother will say that she's okay, but I know that that's not true. I'm getting phone calls from my other relatives, and because me and my mother live in two different states, and I get those phone calls, and we need to start looking into this. We need to start looking into that. And that's how this journey got started for me, was that my mother is going through possibly dementia. Right. And everybody's not too sure. And I just cleave to more that it is a stronger possibility than not. And if that's the case, we do need to figure out what's the next steps. What would we do? Who would take care of her? And even though a lot of that stuff has started to work in our favor, that it is working, it still made me think about, well, what about my dad? Because my dad lives in the same state. My dad is different than my mom. My dad worked up until last year, and he's 70 something years old. He was still working. My dad is much more financially sound than my mother was.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started to look at it and I'm like, wow, like it doesn't take much to make a difference in your life. It really doesn't. It takes that catastrophic illness. It takes finding out that the person that you love found out that they have cancer, or find out that they have a disease that there is not going to be a recovery. And even and I want to say this, especially within the Black community, we deal with a lot of diabetes and high blood pressures, and those things add to other things. Then the next thing you know, you got to have an amputation. The next thing you know, you're not going to be able to work because you can't stand up, because you can't breathe, because now you got emphysema. We deal with a lot of different things, and so being financially sound helps you to be prepared for the, as I call it, the what ifs.
So
Because we have them. What if this did happen to you? Don't you want to be prepared? Don't you want to prepare your children for the what ifs? And those conversations are hard. I had those conversations now with all of my children.
Right.
I don't care where you are. I got one in New Jersey. I got 3 down here. We all have had the conversation. I need you to know this is what mommy wants to do. This is what I want to have happen. So they're not sitting there going, and my daughter said to me, are you sick? Are you dying? And I said, no, I want you to be prepared. Right. You know, it shouldn't have to wait until I'm on my deathbed for me to say something to you like this. You should know ahead of time. And we should be preparing our children and our loved ones, if you have children, and your loved ones, for what the what ifs.
And I'm so glad that you said that, because that's the challenge that we have not, that we have to overcome, because we've not been able to do that. The one thing that you're absolutely right about is the unknown, the inevitables. You're right. So there are two different things. There's the unknown, and then there's the inevitable. So when we think about your mom and the possibility of dementia, when two parents that are living past the age of 70, the probability of one of them having dementia is increased significantly.
Yes.
So that any individual with a parent age 70 and above, they may have to deal with the fact that one of the two of them are going to have dementia. Parents get older and they may not be able to perform or to move the way that they used to. And so, you know, their movement or mobility may be lesser than what you've been accustomed to. And so how do you care for them? They may not be able to perform what we call activities of daily living, because we slow down just over time. And so these are things that's the inevitable.
Mm-hmm.
The unknown is, you know, a diagnosis of something that you didn't anticipate. The unknown is a job loss. The unknown is the things that you can't anticipate, like a 9/11 transpiring, or a fire, or a car accident. Those two things are real. The first thing that you have to do is deal with the issue at hand. But do you know what's very close behind the original issue? How am I going to manage this financially? How am I going to deal with this issue financially? What are my options? And the one thing that I want people to understand is that your options are increased when you have resources.
Yes. Yes.
You're not limited in your options when you have resources. You're not bankrupting your family, causing extra anxiety to your family when you have resources. So what can you control? You can control the maintenance of and the accumulation of resources, so that when those unknowns or inevitables happen, you have different options in order to manage those things. And that's the area with, I want to say, you're doing a phenomenal job if you're having this conversation. I write in the book about my own family dynamics. And one thing that people ought to know is that my mother was diagnosed unexpectedly, obviously, with pancreatic cancer, stage 4. It had already metastasized. And the first challenge is, right, that we find out she had been sick for years, not saying anything, because we ourselves don't listen to our bodies. And so, just upon observation, well, how long have you not been eating? We were out, we were taking her out to dinner. What are her favorite places? She wanted to see Denzel Washington on The Equalizer. Okay, so we were going to a movie and we were going to BBQ, and it's like this is mother's. You got your daughters here, and we're observing she's not eating. That was the initial enlightenment for what it is. Now, we had come up with a strategy or a plan that she used to say all the time. All four of her daughters, we are all college educated. We grew up in the project, but we're all college educated. And she used to tell us all the time, you guys are my retirement plan and you are my long term care policy. Right? And so that's what woman meant, and we believed her. So we had a loose strategy in our head. I was supposed to write the check. I'm in finance. I was supposed to write the check. My sister, one of my siblings was supposed to take her. The other ones were supposed to fit in where they could, and it was going to be fine. She had four of us. Somebody was going to get it right. But when she got sick, that whole strategy went out the window. None of that was possible. Everything that we envisioned would happen, none of it happened. And so when the rubber met the road, was she appropriately prepared? But better yet, were we as her children prepared? And the answer is, thank God we were. But on a personal and emotional level, we were not. I was number four. Let me be honest with you. Everybody likes to say that they had this most amazing relationship with their parents, and their parents were the greatest parents in the world. And that's not my story. We had a complicated relationship until later in life where we reconciled, and it was an honor and a privilege for me to be able to be the caregiver to my mom. But if you would have asked me when I was in my 20s or 30s, I don't want to take care of her. And she ain't want to live with me up until I had to make the decision she ain't want to live with me. And so for some reason, if not wanting to live with me, I must, in full disclosure, I am a preacher, and she thought I was going to Jesus talk her to death. And she was like, I don't want to do all of that. So I understand in that aspect. But financially providing for her was one thing. Preparing emotionally as an entrepreneur was something totally different. What parents must understand is that children have to shift their lives to be accommodating to their parents, and it can cost them economically. So if you as a parent are not preparing for your own ultimate transition in life, whenever that happens, and we want it to be the last day of the last day of the last day because everybody want to live forever. So we understand that. But if you've not been responsible in your own preparation, not only are you drawing from whatever resources you might have accumulated, you're then turning around and you're hindering your children's ability to earn at their potential peak years. And so now you're devastating them. And then if you're a grandparent, you're devastating your grandchildren because now your children have to decide, where is my loyalty going to lie? Is it to my parents, or is it into making the investment in my children? Whew, what a hard place to be in without
Right.
having conversation.
Yes. And that is so important for all of us, because, and I put this up because I was going to talk about it, but it is so true. A lot of parents believe that their children are their retirement plan. And sometimes it's not even the children, it's the grandchildren. Sometimes they think that, okay, I help raise my grandchildren. My children may not have been in my life, but I raised my grandchildren since they were babies. And now that I done got older and, they've been in the house, and now they done went to college, they done got an education, they making money. And now that I done got sick, I can rely on my grandchildren, not realizing that their grandchildren have now started their own lives, and they want to travel. They want to get married. They want to have children. They want to do things, and their thought was not, I'm going to have to take care of grandma. Because one thing y'all write in the book consistently, you and Sharon, was that a lot of us saw our parents as being invincible. Our parents were always supposed to be strong. Our parents will never get sick, because a lot of times we never saw our parents laid up in the bed. A lot of times when we were kids, our parents kept going. I remember the time my father had a hernia. I saw my father crawl across our floor in our house so that he could go to the back. I always saw my father as this strong black man. I never saw my father, even when he was sick, weak. Never. But when I saw my father in that bed, when I saw him at the hospital, that was the weakest I had ever seen my father. And it just made me cry because it's like, I have never seen him like this. But then I had to think about myself at that moment. My children have never seen me like that.
See, see. So let me help all you parents out there. Tell your kids when you got a runny nose so that they can get over it.
It is so true. Now I tell my kids everything. My kids call me and they be like, "Ma, how you doing?" I don't feel good today. I don't feel good. I'm sick. Because it's so true. So they start to understand that you're getting older. Even my youngest child said that. Like when my husband got sick, because my husband's now on disability. When my husband got sick and my son really saw my husband sick, I think he cried, and I think it shocked me and my husband that he cried. And I said, "Why are you crying?" I said, "He's getting better." He said, "But I've never seen him sick."
Never seen it.
And so that was so real. When I read that in the book, it touched me because a lot of us we don't know that. We don't know that from our parents because especially I don't talk about nobody else's community, but the community I know. But I know in the black community, especially with black mothers, they had to be strong for everybody. And so seeing mama sick, no. Big mama was never sick. Big mama was always in the kitchen cooking. Big mama was always helping out somebody else's kids. Big mama was always on the phone talking about this, and that. She was working 2 jobs and all this other stuff, and we never see her sick. So when big mama gets sick, the whole house falls apart.
And that is a very true statement, which is one of the reasons why what I tried to do with this book, and I think my children were unwilling participants, but I raised 2 beautiful children who are amazing adults today. So they're like, "Mommy's off doing something else. What we got to do now?" I don't know if they realize how invaluable they are speaking from a young adult perspective and point of view. Because I did. I put them on the spot and said, what would you like to know when your parents are getting older? Your dad and I have always been here. We've been providing for you. What would make things easier? Because we've encouraged them to be entrepreneurs. And so if anyone knows me, I'm the Dare to Dream woman. I wrote a book titled Dare to Dream, Pushing Past Your Pain to Pursue Purpose. And it was first released, in 2008. And then I released it again a few years ago in the midst of COVID. And so what I said to them was, because your dad and I have always pushed you to dare to dream, they're both entrepreneurs. One is a blended entrepreneur, meaning he has a W-2 income and his own business, thriving business. My daughter is a straight entrepreneur. She don't work, she don't eat. That's how it is. And that she sees from her mom and her dad. And interestingly enough, their dad is a blended employee. Dad's W-2, he has 1099. Me, I'm a pure entrepreneur. And so I understand if I don't go to work, I don't eat. That's how that works in my world as an entrepreneur. And so when you tell them that and you've supported them in that space, and then you have to stop as a child pursuing your dreams because your mother is held up, or your daddy is sick, or somebody needs to go to the doctor, or they can't do this by themselves, it's unfair. Let me be very clear, parents. It's unfair to ask your children to put their lives on the line, and you have been derelict in your responsibility to at least provide some financial provision.
Right.
And so there's got to be a conversation called, hey, because our kids are willing. So let me just say this. Our children are willing to take care of their parents, but don't bankrupt them while you yourself. I wish somebody understood what I was talking about, Cynthia, because if they hear me clearly, you should at least have insurance to leave your kids.
Absolutely.
You should at least have, a 401k, a retirement plan, something to that nature. You should at least have a will. Make it easier for them because you've invested enough in them from an emotional perspective, but they need money to take care of you, and you ought to have provided your own money. You do what you need to do in your lifetime, when you were raised in them. Do not become the child or the shifting in the relationship and then become a burden, primarily an economic burden to them. Then the last thing, because I'm on my roll on this one, right? The last thing that I think is very important is Parents, you must know when you must cede to the authority of your children when you're asking them to take care of you. This I'm still your mother, this I'm still your father kind of a situation is unfair. They are parents to their own children and they're trying to be there for you. And you would be the first one going, woe is me, or think my children owe me something because you did not appropriately plan. It's not fair. So when I had this conversation with my children, I asked them what would make your life easier should your dad or I unexpectedly get sick, or your dad and I as we age, overall, what would make it easier? Two things that they said, and these are the two things that I want y'all to understand as you're under our listening view at this point right now. The first thing that they said is, do not spring it up on us. If you're not feeling well, please let us know. Make us aware of what's going on. Now, for me, I'm a World Trade Center survivor. I've had health challenges as a result of that. My medical challenges, I don't look like what I've been through. To God be all the glory. But my medical challenges have been a thing. And so it becomes my responsibility to tell them what's going on. Now, am I always the best at telling them? No. But they have gotten better in asking me, and I've gotten better in telling them in this stage or this juncture in my life. And so that was the first thing. Have an honest conversation because they saw my mom get sick quickly and everything got disrupted. So they was like, don't let that happen. Please, if we can avoid that, that would be valuable. And then the second thing that they said is, please give us the financial resources to provide options. We will take care of you, but if you don't want us to give up on our dreams that you have pushed us to pursue, then please make sure we have enough resources to provide for you in the manner in which you're accustomed to so that we don't have to be derelict. And so that to me as a parent says, okay, if I had not done what needs to be done, how do I minimize these vulnerabilities that they have pinpointed as a reality? And it would make it easier for them. So now, parents, like I said, tell your kids when your nose is running. Oh, I got a runny nose. And I promise you, they may not want to hear it, but they're gonna learn today. Well, I'm not Superwoman. I want you to understand what's going on. But they will so appreciate it. My children are amazing in their own right as adults. They're amazing as children to a parent. Their father and I are so honored that we have been able to rear such dynamic individuals. And because we've invested heavily, we know that the dividends that we're going to get as we age will be there. But even in understanding and knowing that foundation, we still want them to be better off than we've ever been. And so we still are not over our responsibility of caring for them because they're our kids. And I don't want to burden them. And I want when they eventually pop out babies, I want my grandchildren to never lack for a thing because I worked hard to make sure they had opportunities. I owe them that.
I like that. I like that. And that brings me to something that people always say, which is, oh, I'm the seed of Abraham. I have Abraham's blessing. And I say to people, when you say that, make sure you're making that statement true. Because Abraham didn't leave a burden for his children. He didn't leave a burden for his grandchildren. He taught his children that when you're here, you prosper. But when you leave, you take care of everything so that you're not leaving that burden on your kids. And that went from generation to generation to generation. So when you say you're a seed of Abraham and you are a part of that blessing, make sure you did what Abraham did. Abraham prospered his family by securing his family. Even until his death, he secured his family. And so when we make that statement, we better make sure we're making the correct statement. Just to say that, oh, I'm the seed of Abraham and all that other stuff, I'm the blessings of Abraham. In order to get the blessings of Abraham, you have to look at Abraham's life, the whole totality, not just when Abraham and Sarah had the baby. That wasn't enough. He lived a whole life. There's a whole life in that Bible about his life. You got to read it all. Then you got to read what he did, that his children began to do what he did, and his grandchildren, even to the fourth generation. And so we have to do the same. We may be better than our parents, but then we have to teach our children to be better than us, and then teach our grandchildren to be better than us and better than their parents. And a great way to do that, especially when it comes to grandchildren, is getting some health insurance for them while they're still young. There are plans out there for your grandchildren that you can pay. You don't have to pay a lot of money, but it's something for them to have. Invest in their education. There are educational plans out there that you can start for your grandchildren that ain't nobody got to know about but you and your husband, or just you. If you're single, just you. But you have grandchildren, you want to invest in them. There are ways that we can invest into our families to the second and third and fourth generation. You may be a great great grandmother or a great great grandfather.
Let me interject for a moment. Let me interject for a moment because you said health insurance. I do believe you mean permanent life insurance.
Permanent, I'm sorry, life insurance.
I want to make sure that they're
life insurance
generally provide health insurance when they're working, health insurance for their children. They tend to provide that. But as a grandparent, and many people may remember it, like the Gerber insurance and things of that nature. I strongly suggest that people purchase insurance, when their grandchildren are, young adults. That is a perfect opportunity, a way that if you're going to do some level of gifting, that you get them a permanent life insurance policy, and it does build up a cash value. And as a grandparent, paying that premium is a beautiful thing. It's a wonderful way to ensure that generational wealth is their portion. And then the other thing that you alluded to is a 529 plan, ensuring that your children are, you're investing in kids' college education, or it's not just limited to college. And that's what people sometimes think, but it can pay for secondary or post-vocational school. And even if your one grandchild doesn't go to school or anything of that nature, what you're able to do is have it transferred to another child, so it can be an educational fund. The other thing that I will tell individuals, which I think is very very chic, very 21st century as what have you, is to set up a trust, right? So grandparents can set up trust for their grandkids that they can pour into it in accordance to whatever the gifting or the anointing is, or whatever it is, that the trustee can manage resources in a trust, that if a kid, because not all kids are college bound, but if a kid has a great business idea and they need seed money, a grandparent might be able, through that trust, be able to provide their grandchildren with the seed money. If the kid wants to go for certification for a skill or a gift that may not necessarily be college, because a mechanic needs to go to mechanical school and he can make over $100,000. And so if they want to go down that route, let them go down that route as well. And so there are so many innovative ways that we have the ability to fund and finance the next generation when we ourselves are adequately prepared. Right. See, you've got to put the gas mask on yourself first and make sure that you are adequately prepared, and then you can worry about your children and your children's children. But if you don't have discipline in savings and investing and comprehensive planning, which includes protection, then you will never get to the level of seeing and ensuring that your great grandchildren are taken care of. Listen, I'm not speaking glibly, or maybe people may think that I'm fortunate, but like I said, I grew up in the project. My money went from over $100,000 to less than $18,000. I have a godson. The moment that he was born, I established a 529 plan for him. He just has a little brother, King Kobe, that is entered into the world. You know what the godmother is going to do? I'm going to set up a 529 plan for King Kobe. Ask their godmother. Right? These are my two godsons. They're going to have an opportunity to get whatever it is. And you know what I'm not going to do? I'm not taxing their young mother and father.
Right.
To focus on that right now. When they get stronger, y'all worry about y'all life insurance. Y'all worry about the things to take care of the kids just in case, the inevitable or the unknown happens. Y'all make sure that y'all are putting the gas mask on. Save your 3 to 6 months worth of emergency cash. Make sure that both of you are protected. Make sure that all of your insurances are intact. Make sure you're doing your savings in your 401k so that you're saving for retirement. I got them as their godmother right now. When you get secure in what it is that you're looking to do, you can take over the 529 plan. You can add to the 529 plan. You can tell the other grandparents to add to the 529 plan. But it's set up. Everybody can pour into the educational funds of the next generation. And so these are some strategies that can happen so that you'll be fine because you have a responsibility as a parent to make sure that you don't levy this burden on your children. That's why it's called the quiet shift. You don't even see it coming. Can I tell you? And as we're doing this, as Sharon and I on the, the talk, because we just really released the book. One of the things that I realized is that I'm in relations with someone that I see as a full-time caregiver, and it made me look at how mother calls her son all the time. Baby, can you do this? Mommy need a favor. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. There's some of that equity I'm gonna need it in 20 years. Let me get my behind up and do this for myself right now. Because I understand that I'm well able-bodied to do that now. And the mother, I'm like, and I don't want to say that too loud because he might be eavesdropping or ear hustling. Like, oh, my man gonna call me now. But but I might need that when I'm in my mid-70s, not in my early 50s. So when I save that equity with our children, those are the things that parents have the ability to do. And they are financially associated with you growing older and mature. I like to say seasoned, Cynthia.
And I just want to say, this woman of God has been talking about wealth and finances, and she knows all the jargon and everything. But this woman is educated. This woman has her own business. She already told you she's an entrepreneur. Besides, because I know some people feel like I say this, I love somebody who can work in the marketplace and also work in ministry, and she does both, and she does them well. She has her own business in New Jersey. It's called the Harvest Wealth Financing, and I want you to tell everybody about it, where you're located, where they can reach out to you. I am going to put up your information, but I want you to speak it so that other people can hear it.
I am the CEO and visionary of Harvest Wealth Financial. It is a full service brokerage firm, financial planning firm. And so we do comprehensive planning, and my level of expertise is in investment, it's in retirement planning, it's in estate planning, it's in income, and all of the attributes for comprehensive overall planning. I have had my business since November of 2007, so I just celebrated 15 years, in doing it. Although I've been in my securities industry again for 32 years, very proud of the fact that I'm still standing. This is a very challenging industry, and you don't see people that look like me typically. Fortunately enough, last year I was nominated as top 100 in my field, which is security, and so I'm very appreciative by Investopedia in that regard. And I mention that because accolades ought to follow your body of work. And so, I won't tell y'all how much money I have under management, but I will tell you we are a full service entity, and we deal with those areas of investment. So it's great. I am, as you stated in the beginning, Series 7, Series 6, 63, Series 7, 63, 65, Life and Health. I used to have my commodities license, which was Series 3. But when I went into comprehensive planning as a CFP practitioner, which is a certified financial planner, it's a creme de la creme certification for financial planners. When I went in that direction, I knew I wasn't going to trade anymore. And so therefore, I dropped my commodities license by the nature of the firms that I transitioned to at the time. So we offer everything, in terms of what it is. And so we not only have experience, we have the expertise to back it up. And I'm very grateful to have made a mark in this industry. I think by the time that I leave, my goal is to help 1,000 people transfer from where they've been, no matter where they started, into millionaire status. And so I've got a good few underneath my belt, but I still got a ways to go, because I think anybody, that's committed to overall financial freedom, It doesn't matter where you start. If you have a comprehensive strategic plan of action, you can get there. And we have the expertise in order to help walk you through and take you on that journey.
And that is it, people. You need somebody who can walk you through no matter where you are. A lot of us think if I get here, then I'll go see somebody. If I get there, no, you don't have to wait. You find out what you need. You might have everything you need. You just think you need something. Talk to somebody and find out for sure. It's like saying, I got this cough, but the last time it was just a cold, so I don't need to go to the doctor. You don't know what that cough is. That cough may not be just because you got a cold. It could be something else. So you need to find out for sure. You need to seek out counsel. And so for a lot of us, we won't do it, but we need to do it. Seek out counsel. Don't assume that you know. It's better to have somebody say to you, financially, you're not where you could be, but let me help you get where you can be. Yep. It's better for them than you sit there and go, I ain't got it, so I ain't going to worry about it. You know, that's not the way it should be. You should look for financial counsel. And if you are in the area, you can definitely go there because she is looking to help. And so if somebody says, I'm willing to help you, I think you ought to take it. Because a lot of people won't help you.
I do want to say this. First of all, let me publicly say thank you to Dr. Soares, who wrote the foreword for the book, The Quiet Shift. The one thing that you were alluding to, Cynthia, which is so important, he goes and he's a masterful storyteller. I marvel at the fact that, and am humbled by the fact that, he thought it not robbery to do such a thing. But he goes through giving experiences that he has endured over time, and then gets to the place of saying why he was not worried about it. So he talks about real life experiences, and then he goes why he's not worried about these real life experiences. So it's not that he didn't deal with the challenge or the issue at large, but he realized that because he worked with professionals and experts, all of the areas in which he had challenges, they were going to be taken care of because he solicited the guidance or the advice of experts. The one area in which we all need deliverance in, culturally speaking, and church, the Lord will provide. Well, he provided experts to help you in the area of finances. And so when he did that, I was so grateful, because here's the thing that I want people to understand. You have not because you ask not. And the scripture tells us, my children perish for the lack of knowledge. And you don't know everything. Right. You're not going to try to fix your car. You're going to go to a mechanic. You're not going to try to, even if you don't know how to do hair, you're going to go to a hairdresser. If you don't know how to do certain things, you go to other individuals. Don't try to be your own doctor, and don't try to be your own wealth advisor, because you may know some things, but I am paid to know more than you know, to see what your vulnerabilities are. And if I can see them, we can plug them together. And that's what makes what we do so inevitable.
I love that. And
invaluable. I said inevitable, invaluable.
And I want to say to everybody, I posted on Facebook, I posted on my YouTube channel, but I posted it here just in case if it doesn't show up for you. All her handles, her email, her Twitter account, her Instagram, her website, NicoleBSimpson.com. I always tell people's website because sometimes that's the quickest way people can find you. YouTube, she's on YouTube as well. Do you have videos that talk about finances and stuff?
I do. And so please do me a favor, everybody. If you would subscribe to my YouTube, if you don't go anywhere else, I know you see me on Facebook now and you follow me on Facebook. I appreciate it. But if you would go to YouTube, it's my name, Nicole B. Simpson. If you would go and subscribe to my YouTube channel, we are doing amazing things in 2023. My goal, my desire, my commitment is be financially free in 2023. Aren't you tired of being broke, busted, and disgusted? Aren't you tired of falling short in your resources? Don't you want to do what Cynthia said in the beginning of the show? Sit back on the beach with a martini and not think about how you're going to have to pay for this trip later on. Listen, let us help you be financially free in 2023. We are committed to doing that. And on my website, not only are there tools and resources and information that is available, but we also do free classes We're our nonprofit organization, Generation X, where we teach you and educate you so that you have the information uninterrupted and without feeling the pressure. So if you don't want to come and talk to me directly, come enroll in one of our free classes, and then you'll see I don't bite, and then you'll be able to have a conversation with us afterwards.
Well, God bless. And I want to say to you, thank you so much for coming on the show. I know Sharon was supposed to come on, but I thank you so much for coming on the show. I want to thank you for coming to talk about, and I know we didn't say it enough, but I want to say it again. I'm going to post it again. The Quiet Shift. Please go get this book. You can get. I got mine on Amazon. I did it in my Kindle. I wrote a review. It is a wonderful book. It's a book that will incite you to start working on your financial planning of your life. I'm telling you, the way the book is written, it is written in such a way that it will make you move. And so I am excited to have read this book. You and Sharon did a wonderful job, and I pray that everybody will get themselves a copy and invite your life. Invite it. Invite your life in. Invite your life. Don't put your life on somebody else. Your life. Invite your life in. Say, I'm going to do everything I need to do for my life, my whole life. Not just for right now, not just for the present moment, but for my 50s, my 60s, my 70s, if I make it to my 80s, I'm a plan for my 90s. And if I make it to, a lot of people living to 100 years old, if I make it to 100, I want it all planned. I want to plan my life. I want to live my life. I want to be in my life. Yes. So thank you so much. It was an honor having you on the show. I know I will bring you back. Yes. Thank you so much, Reverend Dr. Nicole B. Smith. Thank you. It was an honor, and I hope and pray, not hope, I pray that God will continue to bless you in all that you do in the marketplace and in ministry.
Thank you. God bless. Bye-bye.
God bless. And so everybody, I want to let you know we will be next week is our last, I had to look at the calendar because I believe it is. Next week is the last week of the financial, and we will have somebody else come to talk about finances because I want us as not just the Christian community or the Black community or Latino community, but I want us as a community to be wealthy and smart and doing the things that God intended for us to do. He didn't just intend for us to just have a little bit to get by. He intended for us to live abundantly. So I pray that on today, I hope you grabbed something. I hope you heard something. I pray that you will go to her YouTube channel as she asks you. There are things that you can learn. And I pray that you'll take this wealth of knowledge and use it to the glory of God. So God bless. I will see you guys next week. And as always, the Crazy Coach is